This episode of the Practice of Therapy podcast is brought to you by TherapyNotes, TherapyNotes.com, and also by Green Oak Accounting, GreenOakAccounting.com. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 160 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Happy New Year, everyone. Hope you're doing well. I'm Gordon Brewer and glad you've joined me for the podcast. If this is your first time listening in, glad you stumbled upon us or found us or were recommended, and glad you're here. And glad you're here to kick off the new year. And boy, were we ready for 2021. I think, it's been a tough past year, and I think most of us can pretty well say we're glad to be out of that season, glad to be out of that year and ready to move on to new things. Even though as we're recording this, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, but it sounds like we're starting to hopefully turn the corner with that as vaccines are coming out, and I think some people are starting to get them already. I know that where I'm located, I should hopefully be able to get the vaccine here in a few weeks. So anyway, hope you're doing well, and hope you had a good holiday season. I know here we are at the beginning of January 2021. And I know one of the things I'm going to have to get used to is writing 2021 instead of 2020. So it'll probably take me till March to do that. But hope you're having a good start to the year. And and so in this particular episode, I'm going to really talk about some of the things that I think is on a lot of our minds, and that's, what do you want to do differently this year? Last year was such a big surprise for us. I think none of us would have even predicted at this time last year that we would have gone through what we've gone through this past year. But I think one of the silver linings with all of that is that I think we've learned a lot of resilience over this year. We had so much that went on just in the United States and just across the world. We had, of course, the COVID pandemic, which is, I think most of us are tired of talking about that, but it was there and still is currently as I'm recording this. We also had a renewed understanding and a renewed insight into racism in our country. And I know that for me, it has taught me a lot in that what I've learned from a lot of people across the country, and just having those conversations about the both the internal racism that I think some of us carry, in particularly those of us that are white and maybe have been unaware of the privilege that has created, but also folks that are people of color, black and brown folks that have lived with it their whole lives. And this past year, unfortunately, it took a bunch of tragedy for us to really get it into the forefront. And so anyway, I'm going to continue to give voice to that, and you'll hear that from me a lot. So anyway, just want to just thinking back over the year, I know that was a big impact that had happened. And then just for me personally, as I've shared on previous episodes, my wife has gone through some pretty significant health issues this year, and she's disabled. And so really having to regroup around her care and being able to take care of her in this past year and then in the year ahead. So that's been something that's been on my mind. But, I think one of the things that happened when we started into the COVID-19 pandemic is it really caused a lot of us to change our priorities and change how we do things. And so anyway, in this particular episode, I want to just really kind of share with you kind of my thoughts on ways of kind of regrouping and also just thinking about goal setting. I know that, the beginning of a year is when most of us make new resolutions. We also make goals and promises to ourselves and to others. And so I want to take you through kind of the process that I use for just evaluating my goals and some of the ongoing ways in which I try to keep myself on track, not only in my practice, but also in my personal life. So I just felt like this was a good place to put this in. You've heard some of this from me before, but I felt like as we were starting out in 2021, we wanted to, at least I wanted to kind of share this again. So, but before we get to that, I'd like to invite you, in speaking of New Year's starting and new things coming, in the month of January, I'm going to be starting a new focus group, a new way for you to get some group mentoring and group coaching. And I just titled that a focus group. And what a focus group is a lot of people refer to those as mastermind groups, but it's a small group of people that get together twice a month, and we just share what's going on in our practices and the things that we are working on in our practices. The groups are small. They're only 6 to 8 people, so we've got time to devote to each other and to be able to share our stories and be able to talk about and troubleshoot the things that we're working on. We meet twice a month. We'll be meeting on Thursdays. The first and third Thursday, I believe, is how I set that up. But anyway, I'd like to invite you to join me for one of those. Again, it's going to be limited space, and it's going to be first come, first serve. And those that enroll and pay the fee and that sort of thing, they'll be the first ones to be in this first cohort that I'll be starting in January. And so you can find out more about that by going to practiceoftherapy.com/focus group. And learn more about that and just how it's structured and join me for that. So just had a lot of great input from folks in previous focus groups that I've led, and I think it's just a great way to connect with others and find a group of peers and a group of colleagues that you can trust and be there for you as you navigate all the things that happen with private practice, and just particularly the business side and the financial side of things. So again, go check that out at practiceoftherapy.com/focus group. Now, before I get to my episode on just planning for the new year and goal setting and that sort of thing, I'd like to invite you to go and be sure and check out our sponsors for today's podcast. And those good folks are the folks at TherapyNotes. And if you'll go to TherapyNotes.com, and they are the leading electronic health record system for private practices and those of us in the mental health field. They're who I use in my practice. And if you'll use the coupon code Gordon, just GORDON, you can get 2 months of their services for free. So be sure and check them out. They've got a patient portal that is second to none. And they're just absolutely, I couldn't do without them in my practice. So I invite you to go over and check them out. I think you'll be happy with what they do. Also, be sure and check out our other sponsor for the podcast, Green Oak Accounting, greenoakaccounting.com. Julie Harris and her team are the experts when it comes to the financial side of private practice. They work exclusively with private practice owners in the mental health fields to help them navigate the financial side of private practice. And now is the perfect time to talk to Julie and her team, because we're getting ready to do that big thing that we always think about at the first of the year, and that's taxes. So you definitely want to be prepared for that and make sure you're not missing anything. So be sure and check them out. Go to greenoakaccounting.com and let them know that you heard about them here on the podcast. So without further ado, we're going to jump into planning and setting goals for the new year. You know, as most of us went through graduate school as clinicians, we learned a lot of the great stuff around just different clinical skills and being able to know how to engage with people, know how to walk people through various stages of their life, and being able to help them create change and think about themselves differently. And all of that I would just kind of lump into the category of clinical skills. But one of the things that we probably didn't learn, unless you've had some other kind of special training in that or have taken any special courses, is just on number one, the business side of private practice and the financial side of private practice. There are very few graduate programs that teach any of that. And so, of course, there are a lot of us now, a lot of private practice consultants or private practice aficionados or mavens or whatever you want to call us out there now that are teaching these skills. But a big part of the skill of running a business, or really just doing any of this kind of stuff that we're doing, is being able to organize things well and to be able to manage our time and all of that well. Back when I was working for an agency, one of the things that they did was with all of the new employees, they would send us to a Franklin Covey training. And it was really centered around the planner that Franklin Covey, that they purchased and had for all of their employees. And it centered around time management. And I think a big part of time management is really kind of knowing the direction you want to go. There's this old saying, or I guess it's a saying or a quote or whatever. I don't know who to attribute it to, but anyway, it might have been Henry Ford or Thomas Edison. But anyway, it was the quote or the saying is, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? And I think that is when we think about goal setting and thinking about our lives and our businesses and all that we do to run a practice and just even manage our own lives, I think it's important to have some goals, and some goals that are tangible and written down. I had heard somewhere that you have a 40% greater chance of completing a goal just simply by writing it down. Now, I don't know if that's actually has some data behind it or not, but I've heard that. It's kind of like with habits. You've probably heard that if you do something 21 times consistently, then you'll be able to develop a new habit. So in this episode, I want to just kind of walk you through part of the process that I use in just developing goals for myself, and just really how I'm able to keep myself on track and try to stay organized. One of the things, one disclaimer here, though, is that I am not a naturally organized person. I'm just always amazed at people that have just kind of a knack for that and know how to kind of put everything in its place and find a place for everything. My wife's caregiver is like that. I'm just amazed at how she knows how to just help us stay organized in our house and knows where to put everything and knows how to do it. That's not something that I do just naturally. It's something I have to put some effort into. So I've learned over the years just several different ways to do this, and I think my time management skills and my organization skills and all of that is just constantly changing. But one of the tools that I use pretty consistently now, and I have for the last several years, is the Michael Hyatt Full Focus Planner. And we'll have links in the show notes here for that, and just so you can take a look at it. But it is a binder. It's not a binder. It's actually a book. It's a bound book, is what I wanted to say. And it's divided. Each planner is it's a hardback book, and each planner is for 1/4 of the year. So it's a little pricey, but I figured that if I spent the money on it, then it would force me to use it. So, and the way it's organized, it's just got a lot of stuff in it in terms of the way the pages are organized and being able to think about writing out goals and that sort of thing. And I'm not saying that you have to get this planner, but there are a lot of other good planners out there as well. My friend Michelle Hardman, who was back in episode number 101, has a planner that she developed, which is called the Primed Planner, and it is one that she developed specifically for therapists. And so, we'll have links in the show notes here for those things. But I think the point is that whichever tool you choose to use, I think it's good to have a tool that you can use to keep yourself organized and on track. And the other thing about having a planner or having a system is it should be very goal directed, because like the quote says, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? And so being able to break things down into smaller pieces of knowing how to accomplish what you want to accomplish for the year. I think the other thing about goal setting is that when we think about our lives and just think about our businesses and what we do in our practices, we have a lot of different domains or different areas of our life. I know, and for most of us, they're kind of interconnected. Some are more connected than others, but we have our home life, our private life. We have what we do with our friends and family and all of that. And there's probably a whole set of goals that you want to have around that. You have your personal goals, things that might involve, just your own health, being able to take care of yourself and self-care, all of those sort of things. And then also we have our business goals or our practice goals, as far as what sort of growth you want to have, how you want to build your practice, milestones you want to set for yourself, and just thinking about, pushing forward and moving forward in your practice and being able to accomplish the things. All of your goals, I think, should be centered around, as I like to call it, your why, but also just thinking about your lifestyle. Most of us go into private practice because we love the lifestyle that it creates for us. It frees us up to be our own boss, to be able to set our own schedules, to be able to take time off when we want to take time off, and also gives us, for a lot of us, just a much greater earning potential. So your goals should center around those things as much as anything, and all be kind of connected and being able to move yourself forward. The problem is when we start thinking about all of these things, that's a lot of stuff to think about. I think it's easier to kind of organize things into what I refer to, or I've heard referred to as the different domains of our life. And so one of the things that I do each year and probably each quarter is just really kind of assess the different domains of my life and the areas that I want to change and want to improve, or just leave the same sometimes. So one exercise that I think is always helpful is, and this is part of my brain dump exercise that I like to call it, is just to get a sheet of paper or, again, I use my planner, but being able to just jot down and label each of the domains in your life. So, for example, you might have your practice. You might have, if you're involved with a spiritual community or church community, you might have that domain of your life. You've got your financial domain in terms of your personal finances and also your business finances. So that would be one category. You've got your family life. You've got not only your immediate family, but also extended family. And then you've got your friends that you're involved with. And then you also might have, I've heard it referred to as your avocation, which are things like your hobbies and the things that you do for fun and things that bring meaning to your life outside of work and outside of your family. So all of these different domains, I think it's important just to jot those down. And then under those different domains, the next thing that I do in my process of setting goals is do, again, a brain dump of just thinking about all the things that I'm concerned about, all the things that I want to accomplish, all of the things that are are on my mind about those different domains. And so you do this brain dump where you just put all of that on paper and just put all of it down, because I think when you're able to write it all down, and I think there's benefit in doing this longhand. I mean, in terms of actually using actual writing things down on a piece of paper, our brains just kind of process that information a little differently. Another way that you can do it is that there's an app that I use a good bit, just particularly within the projects that I work on, and that is Trello. Some of you might have heard of that. Another one that is out there that I've become a little bit familiar with is Asana. But again, those are tools that you can use to kind of organize thoughts, to organize projects and different things that have a lot of moving pieces. So the purpose, though, here in setting goals, though, is to be able to capture everything that is on your mind or everything that you want to accomplish for the year or for the quarter or whatever, and then be able to break those down into smaller pieces. And again, the thing with doing the brain dump, the goal is just to kind of get it all out of your head. It doesn't have to be organized at this point or really make a whole lot of sense or that sort of thing. I think the idea is just to do a brain dump around all the things that are on your mind, all the things you want to accomplish, all the things that are important to you. Most of us have done some different brainstorming exercises at different times in our lives. This is that concept of just being able to put it all on paper, get it all down so that you can look at it. Then next, you want to just kind of maybe even just draw lines to the things that seem connected or seem to make sense, that are maybe overlap in different parts of your life. So for example, our schedules and all of that sort of thing overlap with what we do at work. I mean, we keep schedules for ourselves, outside of work, but those things overlap with our work. And so being able to kind of draw a line between those things. Certainly our financial goals overlap, being able to understand the flow of your finances within your business, within your private practice is heavily connected to your own personal financial goals. And just being able to kind of understand how those interplay with each other. So again, do the brain dump, then just start connecting the dots, so to speak, of understanding what parts of the different domains of your life are connected, what are not, and then begin to prioritize those things. There are some things that we have as goals that might not be the right season or the right time to do that. And one of the things that most all of us experienced this last year was when it came to goal setting and trying to accomplish things that we had set our mind to. All of that changed when COVID hit. I mean, just we put on the brakes and everything changed and our priorities changed. And I know even for me in my life, when we found out that my wife was going to have this major surgery, everything that I had been working on and everything that I had prioritized just got pushed to the back burner because I had to focus on her care and being able to figure out how we were going to manage her disability and all of that sort of thing. So those things will happen, and you have to be prepared for those things and allow yourself to have some flexibility around that. The next part of kind of my process of just goal setting is to be able to think about, when am I going to do these things? And so that's the other part of it. I think one of the mistakes that I make is that I have these big ideas about things and get really excited about them, but I don't figure out when exactly I'm going to do those things. I think a lot of us tend to just kind of go by the seat of our pants, and that's not really a good way to do things. It's really important to set times that you're going to work on things. All of us have daily tasks that are come in, and we're going to have all of those things that are going to constantly need to work on. For example, one for me is, and I think for all of us, is just getting our progress and session notes done from the sessions that we have. And also just being able to block off time within your week to be able to work on projects without the distraction of having to see clients, because that's one of the things, that at least for me at the stage that I'm in, I'm starting to change this a little bit. But I see clients, 4 days a week. And so my afternoons are usually filled with seeing regular therapy clients. Usually my mornings I devote to working on other projects and doing other things. But one of the things that with any of the projects that I've got is that I have to just set aside time to work on those. And so that's where your calendar comes in, and being able to actually put it on your calendar that you're going to work on those things that are important to you. So I'm a big proponent, of course, of the Google Workspace and using the tools of Google. So I really live by my Google Calendar. It's the first thing I open up on my computer or on my phone every morning to look at and say, okay, what does my day entail? So being able to put those things on your calendar and really live by your calendar is an important piece in staying organized, and also being able to focus on the goals that you want to accomplish for yourself. So the other thing too, and I learned this from using the planner that I'm using from Michael Hyatt and Company, is what they call the big three. And they have this concept where when they think about setting annual goals or whatever, is that you only allow yourself to work on 3 per quarter of the big goals, the big, hairy, audacious goals, as I like to call them. And then you break those down into smaller pieces. So in order to accomplish here's an example, and the simple example that I think might be on a lot of our minds. One of the things that I've been focused on this last year is just kind of getting myself back to being healthy again, in terms of just getting some of the weight off that I carry, being able to eat more healthy, being able to exercise more, the stuff we're supposed to do in order to take care of our bodies physically. Just to say I'm going to get healthy this year is not a great goal. But to be able to say I'm going to get up and walk every day, 3 miles every day, is a measurable goal to be able to accomplish what I want to accomplish in terms of living a heavier lifestyle. Also, is being able to track what I eat and being able to jot that down. All of those things kind of add up to being able to meet that goal of losing weight and to be able to move the needle forward with my health and all of that. So that's a simple example of that. And when you apply it to your business, is the same way. And if you have a goal of, I want to get more clients this year or this month, make it more specific. I want to get 5 new clients each week. That's a very specific, measurable goal. So your goals should always be measurable. And then also just being able to think about it in terms of how you're going to do that. So there's a thing called SMART goals or SMARTer goals, which is simply an acronym for, just the word SMART or SMARTer. And when you think about making goals, they need to be specific. They need to be measurable. They need to be actionable. They also need to be risky to some degree. In other words, you need to get out of your comfort zone a little bit with making goals. They need to be time keyed or time sensitive. In other words, you need to be able to have an end date in mind when setting a goal. Also, they need to be exciting. In other words, they need to be something that's just really you can get behind and not something that you necessarily dread doing. That doesn't make for a great goal. And also relevant. They need to be really kind of aligned with your own values and aligned with your why, so to speak. But again, that's just an acronym. Again, I learned that from Michael Hyatt and Company. And it's just the acronym SMARTER, SMARTER. Well, again, we'll have links in the show notes and that sort of thing for more information on the SMARTER goals. In fact, I did an episode or did a blog post, I can't quite remember without going back and looking it up, just around goal setting and just some of the things to keep in mind. So as you move through the new year, one of the things that I would really encourage you to do is to be able to spend some time writing things down and just doing some quarterly reviews, being able to kind of look back at the previous year and spend some time doing that. I think it's one great idea, which I wish I could afford the time to do this, but haven't yet, is just to take a retreat day. And I know that there's been a lot of people that do this where they take a day off or a few days off or a weekend and they go and plan their year, which I think is a great idea. But with all that has happened this past year, our priorities change, our values have changed, how we think about our goals and moving forward has changed. And so I think it's a good idea, particularly this time of year, to kind of regroup with everything. Well, I hope this framework has been somewhat helpful to you in just thinking about being able to kind of begin to kind of pull together some goal setting. We do this every year in terms of just thinking about resolutions and goals. And I just wanted to share with you kind of my process around that. One of the thing that I would say is that there's a lot of information, a lot of resources out there just around this topic of goal setting and time management and that sort of thing. One of the things that I would say is to educate yourself on that. Again, it was something I had to learn along the way. It wasn't necessarily something that was taught to me in graduate school or in any of my formal training. And so I think it's something that just, the most successful people tend to be very organized with it. I think about my friend Joe Sanok over at Practice of the Practice, who most of you, if you're listening to podcasts on private practice, he's got one of the leading podcasts in this space. Joe's a very organized person, and I'm just always amazed at how much he is able to accomplish, but he's got kind of the head for it and the way to think about it. It's not that you can't learn it as well. I've had to learn it, and it's helped me better have a greater sense of purpose in my practice and what I'm doing with the practice of therapy is just to be very goal oriented with what you do. So I would encourage you with the new year starting to think about your goals, think about spending some time to just write it out, to really take some time to look at things and capture it all. As I mentioned, there's a lot of resources on organization and time management and that sort of thing out there. One book that I'll mention that was very formational for me, or very helpful to me, was a book called Getting Things Done by David Allen. It's really one of the classics on time management. He goes into a pretty elaborate system for being able to organize times, but you organize your time management. But he does it in such a way that it's easy to digest and really think about how you organize stuff and how you accomplish things day in and day out. And by doing that, you will have a plan to get you where you want to go. And so, again, think about where you want to be. again, I think it's helpful to think about, where do I want to be a year from now? Where do I want to be 5 years from now or 10 years from now? For me personally, I'm at that age where retirement is on the horizon. And so I'm thinking about that and thinking about what that's going to look like and how I'm going to get to that place in my life. So anyway, hopefully this is helpful information for you, and just thinking about the new year. And boy, I'm so glad we're moving into a new year. And as I know you are probably too, that this has been a tough year. We've learned a lot. We've learned a lot from each other. We've learned a lot about what it means to be human and what it means to be fragile. And also at the same time, we've learned how to draw on our resilience and be able to draw on each other. Again, another little silver lining to this whole COVID pandemic. Even though we haven't been able to physically be with each other, I think that just as in general, as human beings, it's brought us closer because we've faced adversity together, and we've lived through it. And so let's keep pushing forward, and 2021 is going to be the best year ever. I just know it will be for you. Well, I hope that was helpful for you, just to listen to me talk about how I go about setting my goals and how I kind of organize things in my life and what I do in my practice and in my personal life. I hope that, again, I would encourage you, as I said, to find what works best for you. How I do it might not be the best way for you, but I think there are a lot of ways to think about organizing ourselves and being able to help us push the needle forward, so to speak, and make this next year, 2021, a good one for yourself, and maybe feel a little less stressed by doing some of these things. So again, thanks for joining me for the podcast. Be sure and check out our sponsors for the podcast, TherapyNotes, TherapyNotes.com. They're leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. They're who I use in my practice, and they're a platform that helps me stay organized and helps me stay on track. They have a patient portal that is really second to none, and you can try them out for 2 months for free if you just use the promo code Gordon, Gordon, when you go check them out, therapynotes.com. And also be sure and check out my friends over at Green Oak Accounting. We're moving into that season, folks, of getting ready for tax season, and Julie and her team at Green Oak Accounting can be a big help to you in just navigating the whole financial side of private practice. They are the experts when it comes to private practices as mental health providers. That's all they specialize in. So be sure and check them out, greenoakaccounting.com. Let them know that you heard about them here on the podcast, and they will do a free consultation with you to kind of help you get you going in the right direction. And also be sure and check out the focus groups. Again, if you'd like to join me this year, those groups are starting to fill up. So be sure and check that out, practiceoftherapy.com/focus group. And you can get more information about that and apply for that and reserve your spot. It's going to be limited, only 6 to 8 slots. So, and that's going to be starting later this month in January, towards the end of the month. So be sure and get in there and apply for that and sign up for that. I look forward to having you join me for that. So take care, folks. Have a happy new year. I'm glad we made it into 2021 finally. And I really hope that this year is going to be a prosperous and happy year for all of us. I think we're ready for the change, and, it will come. We'll get out of this pandemic, and life will resume a new normal. I think that's how it's going to be. We've learned a lot from this, and I'm really excited for this year and all that it brings and what it entails for us. So take care, folks, and thank you for joining me on the podcast. And again, real quickly before we close, be sure and subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it, whether it be on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or Stitcher or Google Podcasts, wherever you might be listening to it. Oh, we're on Amazon Music and Audible now, so that's pretty cool. So be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. That just helps other people find us and know where we are. So take care, folks, and I really look forward to being with you this year. Got a lot of great guests coming up, so take care, folks. Been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.